Today on Notsam Wrestling, Seth Rollins beats Cody Rhodes. Does it make him the GOAT? Roman Reigns loses. Does that make Bronson Reed the GOAT? Everybody's throwing that word GOAT around, but John Cena and AJ Styles have one of the GOATiest GOAT matches of all time. The MFTs are back and so much more. This is Notsam Wrestling. Welcome to Notsam Wrestling. Coming off of Crown Jewel, coming off of so much, going in to so much. I mean... 8 a.m. wrestling is a wild thing. There were moments over the weekend, like on Saturday, where I was at like the grocery store at like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon going like, I can't believe the wrestling part of the day is done. Usually 2, 3 in the afternoon is when you're going like, oh, that's right. I get to watch wrestling tonight. But now, I mean, the whole world has changed. And I guess that is because of streaming and you know, for older fans, I think it's great. Here's what it is. For older fans that don't want to go to bed late, it is what it is. It's amazing. And those of you that you know who I'm talking to. For younger fans, it's great. My kids getting to get up on a Saturday morning at 8 a.m. and watch wrestling, amazing. I think it's that like middle group that's like, hey, I mean, this is what I do at night. That's why it's called primetime. But I guess primetime doesn't exist anymore. Primetime is whenever the show's on. And quite frankly, you can watch whatever time you want to watch it in. You have to kind of avoid the internet. That's the only thing, which is difficult. But and you know, this ESPN app has been confusing for a lot of people. So I'll tell you, I added the ESPN app to my bundle. So like it's a bundle with Hulu and Disney Plus and ESPN, which I didn't know. It just seemed like the easiest way to do it. And I think it was not terribly expensive. It was like an extra $10. And you got the ESPN app. So I was like, okay, so an extra $10 to watch the pay-per-views. That's what I was doing anyway on Peacock. But then a banner pops up on Disney Plus. Like I'm watching whatever I'm watching on Disney Plus. And the banner pops up. And I noticed this after WrestlePalooza because I was at WrestlePalooza. So I didn't watch it live on a streaming service, obviously. I watched it in the building. But then I go home. And like on Disney Plus, there was like a banner for WrestlePalooza. And I went, so Disney Plus just becomes a hub for all this stuff. I go, I wonder if that works live too. And it does, man. 8 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, woke up, showered off, came downstairs, got my coffee, and turned on Disney Plus just to see. And there was a banner right there. I watched Crown Jewel live on the Disney app. But in order to watch it live on the Disney app, you do have to be a subscriber to the ESPN app and have them linked together or something. I honestly, I have no idea. I just know that I signed up for the bundle and then it worked. So as long as it works, you know, I try not, when things like that just work, I try not to ask questions. Because I feel like the more questions I ask or the more hows or whys I ask, it's only going to get screwed up worse. But when I added it to my app, at least for this one, I was able to watch it live on the Disney Plus app. So I thought that was cool. I thought I would share that with you in case you guys were trying to figure out what was going to be your new methodology for watching PLEs. And I will say that I really enjoyed Crown Jewel. I thought it was a good show in the sense that all the matches were good. It felt like one of those 5-match shows where all the matches mattered. All the matches had time. And, like, not all the matches, most of the matches had story. I don't think the Stephanie Vaquer, Tiffany Stratton match had a ton of story, other than the fact that, you know, it's champion versus champion. But, you know, what comes out of it is the story, I think. What comes out of it is this idea that Stephanie Vaquer has completely leveled up. I don't think Stephanie Vaquer is in that rookie conversation anymore. I don't think Stephanie Vaquer is in that sort of, boy, you see how quick she's coming up the ranks. Like, Stephanie Vaquer is now there. She's in that main event conversation when you're talking about Io and Rhea and Asuka and Bayley and whoever, Becky Lynch, whoever you're talking about getting in the mix for that women's world championship. Now Stephanie Vaquer is not just like, one day, or, it's interesting that she ended up with the title already. We'll see how long it lasts. It's like, no, you're now looking forward to those matches. The idea of Rhea versus Stephanie. The idea of getting to Becky versus Stephanie. Like, those are all compelling stories. And they were before. But I think the fact that she went and got the world championship, and then a month later, or whatever it is, gets the Crown Jewel championship, beats Tiffany Stratton, who was the last person that was on that Stephanie Vaquer road, where it's like, yeah, this is going to be quick, and she's ready for it. I think that's kind of what you have coming out of that match. But I think a lot of the story energy was put into the other Crown Jewel match, the Seth Rollins versus Cody Rhodes match. And that was a match that the story was being told, throughout the weeks leading up to it, where it felt like Seth Rollins became more and more unhinged, dealing with the idea that he has to win against Cody Rhodes. That this really has very little to do with that big Crown Jewel belt. It has very little to do with that Crown Jewel ring. It has everything to do with the fact that, look, he set himself up in a certain way coming off of WrestleMania 41 as the leader of the Vision. He set himself up in a way where he was like, I'm going to guide this industry into the future, and there is no other choice but me. The next step of that plan was the ruse of the century, when he faked the knee injury and he got the World Heavyweight Championship. But what happened when he got the World Heavyweight Championship? He ends up keeping it until Crown Jewel, and now he's got a match against the guy who is the WWE champion, who calls himself QB1 of the entire organization. And it's like, if you can't beat that guy, then everything you're saying about who you are, everything you're saying about what your purpose is, everything you're saying about your faction is completely false. And that wasn't just a feeling that we got. That was something that was reiterated, right? Like the Vision was almost conducting their business outside of what Seth Rollins was doing. When the Vision would go in and, like, 2 weeks before the PLE, have that match with the Usos, Seth Rollins was just in like a trans state. He was in like this weird trance trying to deal with the fact that he has to beat Cody Rhodes. Meanwhile, Paul Heyman and Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed are all focusing on what's about to happen in the ring with the Usos. And then the next week, again, it's like the show is opening with Bronson Reed and Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns, and all this is going on, but Seth Rollins is just in the back going, I need to beat Cody Rhodes, I need to beat Cody Rhodes, I need to beat Cody Rhodes. He was in a gentle mental place. He was in a fragile place. And Paul Heyman broke it down for him. You're not going to have the Vision if you lose. You're not going to have the locker room if you lose. Nobody's going to believe the things that you're saying if you lose. Well, am I going to have you, Paul? And Paul doesn't say no, but he doesn't say yes either. I'm going to have to question why I chose you over Roman Reigns. And then we get to the show itself. And in the opening match, Bronson Reed has the biggest win of his career. I mean, the biggest win of his WWE career. When he left WWE, Bronson Reed beat Okada in Japan. And, like, the fact that he's now beaten Okada and Roman Reigns in a short period of time, both while they're at the peaks of their careers, insane. But Bronson Reed is on cloud nine, obviously. I mean, they couldn't have been more successful with their plan. And Heyman goes to them and says, hey, if Seth, I don't care if Seth is on the top rope, waving you guys to come in, don't go to that ring. Do not let it happen. And you go, wow. So that's not, and then you have to question, was that Paul Heyman's thing or was that Seth Rollins' thing? Because we also had on Raw, and this is key to the story, right? And that's why everything counts, everything is interconnected. Becky Lynch is mad at Jessica Carr, mad at the cadence, and says, well, I'm not going to Perth now because I'm so mad. And Seth Rollins is on a totally different planet, but we got it. I don't know if he got it. We got it. That Becky Lynch said, I'm not going to Perth. So now, going into this match, we know that Seth Rollins has 0 people watching his back. And the question that you have to ask is, was this part of Seth Rollins' plan because he needed it to motivate himself? Was this an idea that Seth was like, I need to hear you say I will lose everything. I need to be able to do this on my own. Because Paul Heyman said this is a meritocracy. A meritocracy means may the best man win. And if Seth is really who Seth says he is, then Seth will win this match. And so you get to this place where you have to wonder, is Seth instructing Paul Heyman to tell them to stay back? I don't want anybody helping me. Or is Paul Heyman saying, we need to test our boss? And if Paul Heyman is saying we need to test our boss, and if the Brons are saying, okay, Seth, prove it to us. The thing about making the guy in charge show you that he's the guy who should be in charge is if he does, it doesn't always end up being flowers and candies on the other side of it. Because if my people are sitting there going, no, Sam, we're not going to help you. You do this on your own. Prove to us that you can do it. And then I do it. Well, now, not only have I proven to you that I can do it, I've proven to you that I can do it by myself. So do I really need you? If I've proven that I can do it by myself, you are lucky to be on my team. I don't need you. And sometimes that's a dangerous thing to make somebody prove. However, on the same show, when you beat Roman Reigns, Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker could both have the same argument towards Seth Rollins. So I still believe that this is going to be a friction builder. You know, there were those that believe because this match was built as a must-win for Seth, it was not built as a must-win for Cody. There were those that believed that, well, then Seth has to lose because now we're going to see the story of Seth losing everything. And I disagreed with that. I didn't think it was time, and I still don't. I think eventually you can get there, but I don't think Seth has gained enough to lose everything. I don't think that Seth has fully established himself as the top of the food chain. I think if you lose everything before you've gotten to the top of the food chain, then it's almost like, what have you really lost? You know, this just becomes a journey about you losing because we didn't see the winning part. You know, it almost be like, you know, every movie, it's guy wants girl, guy gets girl. Guy loses girl, guy gets girl back. That's how the movie works. But if it just goes from guy wants girl to guy loses girl, the whole story is like worthless. Because guy gets girl is the reason why guy loses girl is so impactful. So we're in the guy gets girl phase of this story. That's every story, by the way. You just plug in who's the guy and who's the girl. In this case, Seth Rollins is the guy and the industry is the girl. So we're out of the guy wants girl phase and we're getting into guy gets girl, but he hasn't gotten her yet. He's charming her. He's wooing her right now. Eventually, guy will get girl, and then guy will lose girl. You know who's in the guy loses girl phase of his story right now? Roman Reigns. Guy got girl. Guy loses girl. He's dealing with it right now, and the next step is going to be guy gets girl back, so we can end happily, and everybody goes home and tells their friends to see the movie. So, you know, but I do think it was interesting that it was built in a way where it was must win for Seth, but not must win for Cody. On paper, it was must win for Cody. On paper, it was this thing where Cody says he's the quarterback and you know, if Cody doesn't win, is he really the quarterback? And Cody wants to be the guy, and he's been on every podcast talking about how he wants to be the guy. And if he can't win, then can he say that he's the guy? But the reality is that the go-home promo for this show from Cody Rhodes was based around the fact that Cody is comfortable with the idea that, while yes, he's the man with the title, he's the man right now, and he's the quarterback. The reason he's able to be the quarterback is because he's got this massive team of the best players that the WWE team has ever had. And that it's okay if Cody drops the ball because somebody else will be right there to pick it up. There's too many people there to pick it up for this thing to go wrong. And in that little thing, what you get is this story where it's must win for Seth, but not for Cody. It's nice to win for Cody. It has to win for Seth. And maybe that was done to protect Cody Rhodes. Maybe that was done because you got to pay it to what's the story coming off of this match. And the story coming off of this match for Seth is the continuation of the rise to power and the fact that now you're not going to be able to shut this guy up. The continuation for Cody is still the continuation of the story of the champion, but it is not a rebuild story, I don't think. Because if the intention was to have a rebuild story with Cody Rhodes after this match, then you would make it a must-win scenario for Cody Rhodes. Because if Cody Rhodes loses a must-win scenario, well, then he's got to rebuild. But if Cody is going to be on SmackDown, next week, maybe staring down Drew McIntyre or following up with the Jacob Fatu interaction or whatever it is, if we're moving right into the next Cody story without this, and it has nothing to do with Seth or rebuild, and the fact that, Cody can just simply say, hey, man, and there was a watch around his hand, right? He basically knocked him out with what is the same as brass knuckles, but it happened to be that Rolex. And that would be the saving grace, and then Cody can move on. I don't think Cody should move on entirely, because at some point, I think that we should address the fact that Cody's too nice. At some point, we should address the fact that Cody gets screwed over because he wants to be a leader. What is the reason that you come off of WrestleMania 40? You are now the champion. You leave that night the big winner, and you give the participants of the main event a Rolex watch. You're the one who gives the Rolex. What does that make you? The leader. When you are in the middle of the totem pole, you don't buy gifts for everyone below and above you. That doesn't happen. At Christmas bonus time, your boss doesn't give you a check and then you give him a check as well. That doesn't happen. You don't get your boss a present. Your boss gets you a present, or they're a bad boss. Cody wanted to be a leader in that instance. Cody wanted to be the quarterback. And so Cody gives watches to Rock and Seth and Roman and everybody involved in that match. And all it's done is come back to bite him. The Rock posts threatening Instagrams with that watch. We still don't exactly know where it comes into play. Seth Rollins, literally. Look, would he have found a different foreign object? Sure. But if Cody Rhodes had not given Seth Rollins that watch for protecting him at WrestleMania 40, then Seth Rollins would not have had that watch to wrap around his fingers to punch Cody Rhodes in the face, which would probably have allowed Cody Rhodes to win that match. Because Seth didn't use the watch immediately. Seth used the watch after he considered it, and then he put it in the corner, and then he went back to wrestling. And then in a moment of desperation, he used the watch. The fact that there was a moment of desperation would lead you to believe that Seth didn't think he was going to win without the watch. And who gave Seth the watch? It was Cody Rhodes. If somebody beats me with a gift that I gave them, I'm starting to think, I wish I hadn't given that person the gift. And maybe I shouldn't. I feel like, and maybe I think about this stuff too poetically, but I feel like the fact that Seth Rollins hit Cody Rhodes with the watch that Cody Rhodes gave to Seth Rollins after WrestleMania 40 is a strong sign that Cody Rhodes needs to be more selfish. That Cody Rhodes needs to stop giving gifts to anyone. That the gift that Cody Rhodes is giving everyone is that he's the champion. And you know what gift I gave you? The house. You're welcome for the house. That's the gift that Cody Rhodes is giving. Because he can't wrap the house around your fingers and punch you in the face and then beat you in a match. I think if there was one takeaway from the end of that Seth Rollins-Cody Rhodes match, it's that Cody Rhodes, number one, needs to stop passing that friend word around so easily. And I don't even think he does. But number two, needs to stop giving people gifts because they come back to bite him. They come back to bite him every single time, or at least this time. Now, Seth ends that match. Seth, and everything counts. These things are important. Seth Rollins ends that match holding that title in the air and saying, I did it. I am the greatest of all time. To me, he doesn't say that just to say it. I think you have to be looking at that and going, well, who else says they're the greatest of all time? Who in the WWE right now says they're the greatest of all time? Even gets Alicia Taylor to say that they are the greatest of all time when she introduces them. One person, John Cena. Immediately, when Seth Rollins said he was the greatest of all time, I said, well, that means one thing. That means that Seth and John Cena should have an interaction. If Seth is calling himself the greatest of all time, now it's not a question of, well, this champion's going to step up. Now it's not a question of, well, this challenger's going to step up. Now it's a question of who is going to disprove that Seth Rollins is the greatest of all time. And the only person that could disprove that is the greatest of all time. And John Cena has owned that GOAT title in this retirement tour. So I feel like that, it felt in the moment like that could be a direction that we're going. And whether that means a singles match, like all of a sudden, I think you have to add Seth Rollins on that list of people that could be John Cena's last match. I have it as Drew McIntyre. If Gunther's back, it could be Gunther. I mean, listen, you heard that Australian crowd singing Edge's song. That would be unbelievable if Edge was back. But like I've said before, there's two ways to do this match, and that's either somebody beats John Cena or it's just a celebration of John Cena's career and he gets to leave on top. And both of them are fine. I have no problem with John Cena leaving on top because he's already passed the torch to Cody Rhodes. But you go, okay, why did I say Drew McIntyre? Because Drew McIntyre is an amazing heel that John, and some people think it's going to be Brock Lesnar in John's last match. I don't think it's Brock Lesnar. I think Brock Lesnar beat John Cena so that Brock Lesnar is a bigger force. I think Brock Lesnar beat John Cena so that somebody else can beat Brock Lesnar down the road. And it's a bigger deal. I don't think Brock Lesnar beat John Cena so that John Cena can get his win back. I think Brock Lesnar beat John Cena because that scoops up John Cena's energy. And now, if somebody can then go and beat Brock Lesnar, then they get Brock and John Cena energy. Personally, I originally, a year ago, I said Braun Breaker is my guy to beat John Cena. Braun Breaker is no longer my guy to beat John Cena. Braun Breaker is my guy to beat Brock Lesnar. If Braun Breaker beats Brock Lesnar after Brock Lesnar beat John Cena, that's a bigger deal than just Braun Breaker beating Brock Lesnar. And you could say it's not, but it is. You'd be wrong. You could say it's not, but everybody has the right to be wrong. And that's the beautiful thing about the world that we live in. So I think that I'm saying with somebody like an Edge or anybody else like that, you could do a legendary opponent like we had at Crown Jewel and the AJ Styles match, which I talked about on the Emergency podcast. But are you in the AJ Styles bucket or are you in the Drew McIntyre bucket? There's one superstar that is in both buckets, and that's Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins is not only this monster heel that would be raised up even higher by beating John Cena, but he's also one of John Cena's greatest opponents. Remember when Seth Rollins kneed John Cena in the face and spread that nose of his across his whole skull? Seth Rollins is a viable option for John Cena's last match. Now, I'm not saying that is 100% where it goes. It could just be a matter of John Cena getting involved in War Games, and that's how you make the connection, right? Because in War Games, I think you can have Brock Lesnar come back for War Games. I think you can put Drew McIntyre on Seth Rollins' team. I know there have been rumors about the War Games lineup, but I'm taking all that with a massive grain of salt and just telling you what I think based on the show, not based on the internet rumors. But I think if you have this team of baby faces and John Cena is on it, well, now that sort of John Cena is entering War Games to prove that Seth Rollins is not the greatest of all time. So you don't actually have to do the John Cena-Seth match, but it just becomes that connective tissue for War Games, and then what comes out of War Games is whatever that last match is, whether it's Drew, whether it's whoever. or not, but that's kind of where I would take it. And by the way, with 4 dates left, can we just say that John Cena had some serious nerve telling us that his body can't take this anymore? He said his body wouldn't allow him to hang in this era. And yet, this is now what? At least the second, if not the third PLE in a row that he's had match of the night. SummerSlam, 2 nights. Cody and John was the best match of both nights. You could argue Clash in Paris, Logan and John was match of the night. You could argue that. I'm not giving him WrestlePalooza because that was a different deal. But AJ Styles versus John Cena was easily match of the night at Clash in Paris. John, you still got it. People chant that all the time, but you're one of the ones who still got it. Hey guys, we're going to get right back to it, but this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I, we make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Getting in on the action is so simple. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. Then you watch the game and you see if you've earned yourself some cash. I mean, listen, it makes NFL weekends all the better, but also playoff baseball. My team, the Yankees, is out, but now I can make my picks. Look at Vlad Guerrero right here, 7.5 hitter, fantasy score, more or less. Prize Picks even lets you connect with friends and your celebrity favorites. Follow other players and even copy their lineups in one click. Get in on the action in over 40 states now, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code NOTSAM to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code NOTSAM to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Speaking of got it, guess who got it? At Crown Jewel, it was a big night for Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed pins Roman Reigns. Of course, we get this ending where Braun Breaker comes in, the Usos come in, it's chaos. Roman Reigns almost has the match in hand, but Bronson Reed doesn't allow it. Jey Uso goes to spear Bronson Reed through a table. He ends up spearing his cousin, Roman Reigns, through that very table. And Bronson Reed is able to hit the tsunami and pin Roman Reigns. I truly thought this was going to be the beginning of Roman Reigns coming back and destroying everybody. I truly thought Roman Reigns was going to beat Bronson Reed. Then he's going to go on to Braun Breaker. They are really building this army around Seth Rollins to be a lot more than soldiers. To me, before we get into the aftermath of this match, Roman's going to be fine, obviously. Whenever Roman kicks into gear, it'll be okay. But you've got now a victory for Bronson Reed, unlike anything else that you could give to somebody in the WWE. Roman Reigns has been pinned by 2 people in like 6 years, or in singles matches. I think Solo also pinned him in the tag match. But in a one-on-one match, I mean, I think since 2020, in this decade, I believe in one-on-one matches, Roman Reigns has been pinned by Bronson Reed and by Cody Rhodes. I think he might have been pinned by Seth at WrestleMania and maybe Solo in that tag match. But in one-on-one matches, 2 people have beaten Roman Reigns this decade. And Bronson Reed is one of the 2. Cody Rhodes is the other one. That's massive. And what this win does is it puts Bronson Reed beyond the muscle of the group. And it puts Bronson Reed into this category of equal, I would argue, to Braun Breaker. Whether you buy it or not, whether you believe it or not, there is now enough narrative credibility that you could sit there and say, yeah, it would make sense that Bronson Reed would get a world heavyweight title opportunity. You know, that's what you get coming out of this. That down the road, if Bronson Reed is wrestling for the world heavyweight championship, it makes sense. He pinned Roman Reigns, and now, I mean, after pinning Roman Reigns, nobody should be beating Bronson Reed. That should really kind of be it for anybody that beats Bronson Reed. And listen, Bronson Reed is great. Bronson Reed has very Bam Bam Bigelow-like qualities, except that fit into this more sort of, modern era of wrestling, which is even more athletic. He's amazing, this Bronson Reed. And I think that this win against Roman Reigns goes a very, very long way. Bronson Reed is now choosing to be a member of the Vision, but he certainly doesn't need the Vision. Now, listen, there's caveats on caveats on caveats. Braun Breaker interfered, Jey Uso speared Roman Reigns, all this stuff was going on, but regardless, it was a street fight. Everybody knew the rules. Bronson Reed pinned Roman Reigns, and that's it. He's on a very short list of people. Now, on the other side of things, for Roman Reigns' group, for the Usos, for what was happening with the bloodline, everybody's trying to guess, including myself, where this story is going in terms of the bloodline, because it seemed very cut and dry. Going into WrestleMania and coming off of WrestleMania, it was Roman is, the bloodline story is told, Roman is moving on, and now it's Roman and the Vision, and Roman and Seth, and eventually it will be Roman and Punk, and then Roman and Cody, except this whole Jimmy and Jey Uso thing has thrown a monkey wrench into everything, and nobody can get quite a read on where this is going to end up, on where this is going to land, because there's nothing about it. I mean, again, Jey Uso walking out on Jimmy after Roman walked out on Jey and Jimmy makes it seem like, well, Jey's turning heel, but I don't think that that is necessarily the case. And even if Jey would turn heel, where does that leave Jimmy? Jimmy being the only one that gets the family together, if he's unsuccessful, where does that leave Jimmy? And there are some that were looking at that interaction and going, well, Roman is a heel now. And that's not true. They were looking at that interaction going, Roman is still the same Roman. And that's not true. Even Jey said, Roman is always going to be Roman. But it is simply not true based on what was said in the ring. A lot of people were focusing on the line, I love y'all, but I don't want to see you until Christmas. And there is something very villainous about Roman Reigns disinviting them to Thanksgiving in front of everybody in Perth. No Thanksgiving? Just not until Christmas? No, we're not even doing Halloween together now? The kids aren't going to get together and trick or treat? Nothing until Christmas. And who knows? Maybe Roman will stay true to it. I don't want you anywhere around. But the old Roman Reigns, the OG Roman Reigns, the villainous Roman Reigns, would have yelled at them saying, I call the play. He didn't say, I call the play. Even when Jimmy said, we were trying to help, Roman said, I know, I get it, I love y'all. Like Roman kept saying, I understand what you were doing. I love you guys. We're family. But then it was almost the exhaustion. This only works one way, he said. This only works one way. First, he said, people think I can't do you-know-what on my own. And I talked about this on the Emergency podcast. But that right there, that awareness of what perception people have of Roman Reigns is, and the idea that Roman cares about that perception, is a babyface characteristic. Roman is upset because he wants to showcase what he can do on his own. He's not upset because he thinks the Usos screwed up. The first thing he's upset about is not, I lost because of you. It's, even if I had won, I would have been upset because you shouldn't be here, because I asked you not to be here, because people think I can't do this on my own, and I have to disprove that. And right there, it's like, that's so different from anything Roman Reigns did before. And then almost exhausted, almost exacerbated. He goes, he could barely get the sentence out. This only works one way, he said. This only works one way. And he clearly didn't want to elaborate on that. And what does that mean? What is the only way that this works? Is it, this only works one way in the sense that, like, I lead with absolute power? And I know you guys don't want to do that. That was the first way I thought about it. When he said this only works one way, is it like, well, you guys don't want me having absolute power. You saw what happened before. You don't want to get back into that. But that's the only way this works as a group. The only way this works as a group is I call every shot and you guys follow blindly. And if you guys are not satisfied with that, then we can't do it that way. Or maybe he's saying, I don't have the ability to be a benevolent dictator. I don't have the ability to do it the way it needs to be done without making your lives miserable. So we can't do it that way anymore. You got to stop. Maybe. Or maybe he's saying this only works one way, and the one way it works is with the wise man, and we don't have the wise man. And if we don't have this piece of the puzzle, we can't have half a puzzle. You don't start a puzzle when you know you're missing pieces, because all that's going to happen is frustration because there is no way to win. If I tell you that puzzle right there is missing 2 pieces, and you still dump out all the pieces and start working on it, there will never come a time when you're satisfied. There will never come a time where you can win, where you can complete the mission. Because I already told you there's 2 pieces missing. You're better off leaving it on the shelf to begin with. And maybe that's what Roman Reigns was saying. That piece of the puzzle is missing. So there's no reason that we should be here trying to build this thing. He said this isn't the old days. This is not the old days. Which again, is that because Heyman isn't there? Is that because people have moved on from it? Is that because he doesn't want to lead the way he used to? Is that because he looks at Jay and says, Jay, you're not that guy anymore? Maybe Roman is looking at what's in front of him, saying, Jay, you're a world champion now. You are not the guy that you were. You should not be thinking about the group. You should be thinking about yourself. You have to think about yourself. That's the only way this works. Maybe that's what he was saying. Listen, man, I am intrigued and compelled by it. I think it's a direction that a lot of us did not see coming. I think it's even a direction that has left many of us confused because we don't know where it's going. And usually we can sit here and go, well, whether we're right or wrong, well, this is where they're going with that. Oh, of course they're doing that. And sometimes we're wrong and they swerve and they go the opposite direction. But we at least get to a fork in the road and we see the 2 roads. We get to that fork and we see the 2 directions that this road is headed in. Right? Just like I explained with Seth Rollins coming off of this match. These are the 2 directions that this group could go in. Here, it's almost like you know that there's a fork in the road coming, but you don't know what direction this road is going to go in. You're going to have to just like sharply turn the wheel when you get there because you have no idea where it is. At some point, this road is going to end and there's going to be a fork, and you got to be ready for it. But that's how I feel looking into this, because it seems like every time you get a grasp on like where this is going, stuff changes again, which is wild. And it's great. And that's the way it should be. That's the way, unpredictable storytelling is. But yeah, I thought it was, look, for me right now, I really want the Usos back. I want the Usos back as a tag team. I want to see Jimmy and Jay have a run as a super tag team. I thought that's what we were going to get weeks ago when Jay said to Jimmy, I can't do this without you. I can't do this on my own. And Jimmy said, I got you. I would love to see that super team Usos run. But I don't know if that's the direction it's going in either, because right now, Roman leaves. Then Jay leaves and says, well, Roman is always going to be Roman. Roman's out, so I'm out. And Jay leaves to go do his own thing. And, keep in mind, Jay's the one who left the bloodline. Jay said, nothing's changing here, so I'm going to go figure out a way to benefit my situation. And he went down a new road that led him to the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania. So logically, that character should trust his instinct on that. But then I don't know what happens to Jimmy. I'm very, very interested. Very, very interested to see what finds out. Now, on the other side of things, when it comes to that Samoan family, a lot happening on Smackdown with the MFTs. So there were rumors online that there was going to be a creative shakeup within the WWE and the way like the shows are written and the stories are told and everything. And I don't know if that's true or false. I don't know if that's just stuff that was said on the internet or if that's real or what it is. But I will say that it felt like there were efforts made on SmackDown to shake things up, right? We had the return of Shinsuke Nakamura. And he was not in his samurai outfit. His old music was playing. It was the old Shinsuke that we loved. It was the Shinsuke that won the Royal Rumble. It was the Shinsuke that never should have turned heel in the match with AJ Styles at WrestleMania. It was OG Shinsuke. And it was OG Shinsuke versus Sami Zayn, which was Shinsuke's first match in NXT at the takeover in Dallas, I believe. WrestleMania, 32 weekend, I want to say? Does that mean that Shinsuke is approaching 10 years in the WWE? That's insane, if true, but I think that that's right. But we saw that. We saw Zelina Vega. We saw a banger of a last man standing main event between Aleister Black and Damian Priest. And we saw Zelina Vega joining Aleister Black and Aleister Black setting Damian Priest's face on fire, which is amazing. In AEW, we saw a Molotov cocktail. Darby was trying to light a Molotov cocktail, which, by the way, I'm pro Molotov cocktail. I know that there are some people saying that's ridiculous. If you're going to go there, go all the way. No half measures. And there's something about trying to light a Molotov cocktail and getting tackled by security that is so not a half measure that I actually admire it quite a bit. I loved it. I thought it was great. But the other thing that we got in terms of a new creative direction on SmackDown was Solo and his MFTs. Now, I hope you guys are listening every single week to Notsam Wrestling. I hope you're telling all your friends to listen every single week to Notsam Wrestling, because if anybody was wondering exactly what was going to happen with the MFTs, I basically got it all right except for the face paint. I said Tama Tonga is of course the person missing. When Solo Sikoa said, "I'm only missing one piece of the puzzle," I said, don't go any further than Tama Tonga. Don't stretch. Don't. Sometimes there's no reason to go that far. The answer can be right in front of your face, and in this case, it was Tama Tonga, right? I didn't know they were going to come out with their old Gorillas of Destiny face paint on, and especially add it to Tala Tonga and JC Mateo. But you know what? I mean, it's like, here's what I said. I said, you need to have a total refresh of the MFTs, not the members of the MFTs, but their reason for being. You need to separate them from the bloodline. They are a great faction. Solo Sikoa is an incredible talent. And everybody in that group is really good. You just can't have them feel like a bloodline junior. And that's why I said it last week on the pod, if it's me, I start a program with them in the Wyatt Six right away. Because now it's like, has nothing to do with the past, has nothing to do with proving anything to Roman or Jacob. And I got a little concerned because they first come in and they attack Sami Zayn and Shinsuke Nakamura, which I was like, I hope they're not getting into something with Sami Zayn here. But I think that was just an attack. Because then, after the Wyatt Six defeat the Street Profits in a tag team championship match, the MFTs show up and have that stare down, and the whole group stares them down. And I think that that's great. I think that's the story to go with. Just brutality, right? Just these two monsters going after each other. I think that there's a lot you can do with the two groups. I think that something as simple as adding face paint to Tonga Loa, Tama Tonga, Tala Tonga, and JC Mateo is going to make all the difference in the world. I think it's brilliant to just add a little face paint, and all of a sudden, everything's different. All of a sudden, because the Bloodline never had face paint on. It's just a totally different look. You can't tell. When Tama Tonga showed up with that face paint, it was like before when Tama Tonga showed up. If you didn't know him from New Japan, it was like, oh, I don't know who this guy is. When he shows up with face paint on and everything, you're like, I don't know who he is, but he's awesome. You're going to be able to have kids dressed up as them for Halloween now. Only a month away, just throw some face paint on. You could be in an MFT. I think that I was so happy with seeing them get that literal fresh coat of paint that I think it's exactly what they need. I think it's the exact reestablishment that I was hoping for. And I think that they can be a really great group on SmackDown with no connection whatsoever to the bloodline. And I also really like that Solo doesn't wear face paint. I like that Solo now just has this army behind him. Solo has this army, and this army pledges their allegiance to Solo like their family. Solo doesn't trust his real family. He doesn't own his real family as his family. He trusts these people who actually have his back. And you go, well, why doesn't Solo trust his real family? And then you can get into the history of the bloodline. Like, that's what this faction should be. This faction should be a brand new thing, totally separate from what the bloodline was, but something that has the bloodline in its foundation. The bloodline is such a strong story and faction that everything associated with it should have that foundation to it. But if you just sit in it, it feels like Bloodline Light, and nothing can survive as Bloodline Light, because everything that is even remotely similar to the Bloodline is going to feel like Bloodline Light, because the Bloodline is on the short list of greatest factions of all time. So the idea that now this is completely different, this is an army of soldiers that Solo Sikoa has brought into the WWE that look at Solo as if he is their family. I think that creates an entirely new dynamic. And something as simple as the face paint makes it feel like one for all for one, makes it feel totally different from what it was before, and makes it feel like they really are, like that's their war paint. And who are they going to war with? Whoever Solo tells them to. And who are they going to war for is Solo Sikoa. And I think that it's gonna position Solo, and I hope that Solo is able, like, to take on this role of boss, but not like, I felt like before Solo was too weaselly as boss. Like, it was almost like Solo had this army because he was a coward. And I think that is something that has been done a lot in pro wrestling. That's a stereotype of pro wrestling. That is one of those boxes to check. That's how, and maybe that's just how instinctively some of these characters end up getting written. But the reality is that you spent years building up Solo as this force that could potentially beat, he pinned Roman Reigns. He beat John Cena. Like, you built Solo up to this point where, like, he was supposed to be a credible threat to Cody Rhodes and the WWE Championship. So I think that what I would like to see with Solo going forward is not this guy who has an army around him because he's a coward who can't fight his own battles, but this guy who has an army around him. And the only thing worse, the only thing more difficult to deal with than the army that Solo Sikoa has built is Solo Sikoa himself. Like, almost to the point where it's like, okay, I did it. I beat off. I'm not using, no, pause on that. I'm not finishing that sentence. No. I caught myself there in the comments. You can't get me on that. I know what I said just now, and I'm not finishing. I'm going to rephrase that sentence right now. I did not mean to phrase it that way. No. You didn't get me. I got me. You didn't get me. I got me on that, okay? I was quick on that. And if you're like, what did he say? Rewind it. But theoretically, if you get to a position where you have defeated, I will say defeated, where you have defeated the entire army of MFTs, now the trouble only begins because Solo Sikoa is going to be waiting for you. That is what I meant to say, not the other thing. Okay, so really, honestly, guys, that was a little immature of you to laugh at. That was like literally like, get your mind out of the gutter, okay? That's really silly. We're trying to have a serious conversation about pro wrestling here, okay? Like, grow up. That's what I would say to you. I hear you laughing. Grow up, dude. It wasn't funny. People say that type of thing all the time. Like, different things mean different things. Yeah, I mean, grow up, really. Let's get into emails, honestly. NotSamWrestling@gmail.com is the email address. I'd love to hear your opinions on what's going on with Solo and the MFTs. I'd love to hear your opinions on what happened coming off of Crown Jewel, as well as what we'll see this week on Raw and SmackDown. NotSamWrestling@gmail.com. And your ideas. Now that we're heading into War Games, right? We're, 6 weeks away from War Games. We've got a Saturday night's main event before that. So let's talk about how these stories are going to unfold. You can email me, NotSamWrestling@gmail.com. NotSamWrestling@gmail.com. We'll go to Camden, who writes, Sam, 2 quick things. With Roman wearing both Ulafalas again at Crown Jewel, do you think Roman will eventually crown Jay with one of them? Also, how funny would it have been if Roman said, I don't want to see y'all till Christmas, and Jay replied, not even Thanksgiving, Oos? Exactly. That's But I feel like Jimmy would have said that, not Jay. Come on, Big Oos, not even Thanksgiving? No, not Thanksgiving. I don't know, because they did, like, when Roman first came out with the 2 Ulafalas, Michael Cole put it over and explained the significance of it. I don't think it's so far-fetched, I think the idea that, like, and it would almost be like, I think there's a world where that happens, the same way The Rock put the Ulafala on Roman Reigns after Roman beat Solo. If Roman were to keep that black Ulafala and at some point put the red one on Jey Uso, but I just don't know what Jey Uso would do to prove that he's the tribal chief. Maybe like, and it would probably have to be done more similarly to when Alpha and Sika put it on Roman than when The Rock put it on Roman. Right? Because when The Rock put it on Roman, it was almost like The Rock was so what Alpha and Sika put it on Roman when he beat Jay, I want to say. And then Rock put it on Roman when he beat Solo. So I guess Jay would have to maybe win the WWE Championship, or it would have to be some kind of grand conquering. It would almost have to be like maybe, and I don't know how you would fill this in, and I don't know if you could ever get there, but maybe it would have to be like if Jay had almost a moment like Cody had at WrestleMania 40. Where everybody boosts him up on their shoulders. Like if Jay somehow made it into the main event of WrestleMania, because Jay won the World Heavyweight Championship, but he didn't do it in the main event. Like if Jay ended up somehow going to the main event, and I don't know who he would face in the main event. Like maybe like a Drew. I mean, Gunther was so good for him to beat that first time, but Jay would have to go to the main event of WrestleMania as a babyface, win the championship, and then have everybody kind of hoist him up, and then Roman comes out in the C's part, and then Roman gives him an Ulafala. I could see that. There is a way to get there, but this version of Jay, I think we have to see some growth out of this version of Jay before we get there. But it's not a bad idea. Avik writes in, which is your favorite Survivor Series elimination match? Of all of them, I'd go for 1995, the Underdogs versus the Body Donnas. I loved it when Heel Kid was the survivor. Okay, favorite Survivor Series elimination tag ever? Listen, that Raw versus Smackdown versus NXT Survivor Series elimination tag, where you ended up with Keith Lee and Roman Reigns kind of gave Keith Lee the rub. I think he still beat him, but he gave him the rub. That was a pretty spectacular one. But if you want to go old school, probably Ultimate Warrior, the Road Warriors, and Texas Tornado versus Demolition. And who did they fight? Who was Demolition's tag team partner? I believe that was Survivor Series 1990. I'm going to look it up right now. Ultimate Warrior, LOD, and Texas Tornado. I'm assuming when I put those names in, it'll come right up, because that was like, and it really was. It was, the Ultimate Team was. Yeah. Okay, here's the AI overview. Was it Mr. Perfect and Demolition? That might have been it, right? Ultimate Warrior, Texas Tornado, and Legion of Doom. I want to say it was versus Mr. Perfect and Demolition. Now it's bothering me, so I don't want to just leave it at that. I'm going to now go to Survivor Series 1990. That's what I should have done from the beginning. Survivor Series 1990, so I could just get the match. I should have done that from the beginning. That was stupid of me. Yeah, it was because then the Warriors, Ultimate Warrior, Mr. Perfect, that's what it was. So it was Ultimate Warrior. They were called the Warriors, but that's because, like, Texas Tornado was a warrior. Then it was the Road Warriors, and then it was the Ultimate Warrior. But in reality, it was just the Ultimate Warrior, Hawk Animal, and the Texas Tornado versus the Perfect Team, which was Mr. Perfect and Demolition. And by the way, for Demolition to just give up the name of the team like that, they literally have 3 out of the 4 members. And Mr. Perfect just goes, no, I think we'll name the team after me. And Axe, Smash, and Crush. We're like, okay, sounds good. Yeah, because then the other one was Hogan, Hacksaw, Bossman, and Tugboat versus Earthquake, Haku, Dino Bravo, and the Barbarian. Yeah, I think it was that opener. Yeah, there's just something so exciting about the Ultimate Warrior, the Road Hawk, and the Legion of Doom, I should say. The Ultimate Warrior, the Legion of Doom, and the Texas Tornado. And I think that was because in 1990, that was that new wave of baby faces, right? Hulk Hogan had already been the top guy for 5 years or more. And you saw this new wave coming in, right? Because, like, Hacksaw had been around for a little while, Big Boss Man, Tugboat, and those were also clearly, like, Hulk Hogan's friends. But, like, the Ultimate Warrior, the Legion of Doom, the Texas Tornado, and this was even before, like, I understood the significance of, like, the Road Warriors coming in from NWA and Kerry Von Erich coming in from World Class. I was just, a 7-year-old kid watching WWF. But that team, and it really was because of that team. I mean, I loved Demolition. I loved Mr. Perfect. But I would say that. I would say the opening match for Survivor Series 1990 is probably my favorite one. And then it leads to the 5-on-3 Ultimate Survivor match at the end of the show, which is Hogan, Warrior, and Tino Santana versus the $1 Million Man, the Model Rick Martel, the Warlord Hercules, and Paul Roma. It was like all the bad guys that won versus all the good guys that won. Not exactly shades of gray. Let's go to, and if I'm not mistaken, I think 95 Survivor Series was actually pretty rough. I think 95 Survivor Series was also when they did the wild card match, where they had good guys and bad guys on the same team. I do not think 1995 Survivor Series was very good. But also 1995 wrestling was a little rough. I love it because I grew up with it. It's got a place in my heart, but it was kind of rough. Mark writes in, everybody's forgetting it. Money in the Bank 2023, Jey Uso actually did pin Roman Reigns. It was a huge deal because it's the first time Roman Reigns had been pinned in over 3 years. That's right. It happened during the Bloodline Civil War tag match. Yes, it did. The Usos versus Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. That's right. And that led into Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns. The Bloodline Civil War was big. Yeah, so Jey Uso, Seth Rollins, Solo Sikoa, Bronson Reed, and Cody Rhodes have pinfalls over Roman, except it's just Cody and Bronson that have the one-on-one pinfalls. But good to bring up Jey. I didn't remember Jey in the moment. Let's see. Let's go to, okay. Johnny writing in. John from the UK. I had an idea on how they may play Crown Jewel that I've not really seen. He said this right before Crown Jewel. Okay. The Bronze come out during Cody and Seth match on the, all right. Well, clearly none of that's going to happen. I think that, although I will say that I had thought that Roman was going to decimate the Bronze and that's why the Bronze weren't going to come out in Seth Rollins' match. That, like, Paul Heyman was going to go to Seth Rollins and say, there's nothing we can do here. Although Paul Heyman wasn't even out there for the Seth Rollins match. Which is really interesting. This dynamic between Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman is really, really fascinating. because Paul Heyman does not have, like, Paul Heyman pretends to not have control over his clients when he actually does, but Paul Heyman actually doesn't have control over Seth Rollins. So it makes for a very, very unique relationship. So, all right, let's call it there then. Monday Night Raw is on at 8 a.m. Monday. So by the time you're hearing this, Raw is either on or already has been on. So I would imagine, and I struggled with whether or not to do this podcast or to do it on Tuesday, but like on Monday, or, to come out with it Tuesday morning. But on Monday, I'll have the show on SiriusXM, Notsam Wrestling Live on Pro Wrestling Nation. And then I'll also have Raw Recap on Monday afternoon coming out. So I'm assuming that we will have either an emergency podcast or some kind of content to go with that early morning Raw as well this week. But, if you're subscribed to the channel on YouTube, or if you're subscribed to the audio feed on Apple or Spotify, you're seeing content come out almost every day now. And I hope you're enjoying it. Let me know what you think. You can email in notsamwrestling@gmail.com. Leave comments on the podcast. Subscribe, hit like. Leave reviews on the audio feed. Leave ratings. And we'll see you, honestly, probably within a day or two here on Notsam Wrestling.